The rainbow serpent is he's the creator. He's created the mountains and the rivers and the waterways and the little creeks and the hills, and everything comes from him. And rainbow serpent, he's not male. He's male and female. He can be whatever. He's the creator, the rainbow serpent. And he lives in this lake out here, see? The lake is the disappearing lake. It's called like what the white fellas call it, Lake George. But our people call it Lake Wirrawah. And our people believe that there's all of these water, underground water that goes all over Australia, and that's where the rainbow serpent, he comes up out of the water. There's bottomless water up there. There's more outside of Bogabilla. There's a place called Boobla Lagoon, and that's another one of the areas that's very sacred to the rainbow serpent. So he comes up out of this other lake, and there's other parts in other parts of Australia, but it goes all over Australia. And that's what connects us, the rainbow serpent, dreaming, and. That's why I have problems with this story about Adam and Eve. Most Aboriginal people have stories because it doesn't fit in here. It doesn't fit here in Australia because we wouldn't have worried about the apple. We would have chased the snake and ate the snake. And we would have had the apple for dessert. But that's the way I'm made. So that story doesn't fit in at all here in Australia about Adam and Eve. And our people believed in astral travel. We believe that the mind is a very powerful thing. It can do things when you're sleeping. Your mind can travel to places that you wouldn't be able to do while you're awake, but in your sleep, our people believe that you can astral travel. They've been believing it for years. And shape changing, they used to be able to change themselves into different animals. Aboriginal people, everyone who's born here in Australia, we all have a totem. We all have a connection to an animal or a bird or a fish, but everyone has a totem. Everyone who's born got a totem. It can be a tribal totem, like the Wiradjuri totem for a Wiradjuri mob. It's a goanna. It's a lizard, a big goanna. It's our totem. And then you'd have your own family totem, and then you'd have your own personal totem. And that could be animal, bird, insect, fish, even trees, because we believe that everything is connected. Every living, breathing thing on this earth is connected, and we're all connected to it. And if you upset a part or take away a part of that connection, it can have a very bad effect on the whole system. That's why to cut down one tree at someone's home, it has a bad effect. That's what they're experiencing here in Australia because they've cut down all the trees. There's droughts and now bushfires because we aren't burning off. We're not doing what Aboriginal. They don't allow Aboriginal people to do what we did since the beginning of time, because the fire to us isn't just it's a very spiritual connection to us. We have it for ceremonies, we have it for for cooking, but we're fire farmers. We farm the whole country through fire, and that way none of the undergrowth would grow and then die out and then be tinder for bushfires like they are now. And if we were allowed to go back and look after our land the way that we have for thousands and thousands of years, they wouldn't have any of the soil erosion, the pollution of the rivers, the desecration of the land. We'd be able to stop all that and maybe live closer to the land than what's happening now, because our land here for thousands and thousands of years, since the beginning of time, our people have looked after it and we've nurtured it. And in 200 years, the destruction here in our country, it may be that our land might be able to recover from it, but hopefully it's not too late, that we can still, people will see the common sense, and common sense will prevail, and we'll be allowed to do what we've been doing for thousands and thousands of years. But that's not going to happen until our sovereignty, our sovereign rights to our country is recognised, and we're talking about in real legal terms. And that's why the Tent Embassy has remained. The dream time, that's, a lot of people ask about the dream time, but that's where we believe all our people come from and where they go back to when they pass away. Our people believe that, we believe in reincarnation, that you can come back, that your spirit never dies, that the physical dies, but the spirit lives on. And that's why we have a real connection to the land and the animals and the birds and every living, breathing thing. I can't think of anything else to say at the moment.
Yeah, just one thing. So, I mean, I understand what totems are, but for people out there, what is totem? What does it mean to?
A totem? Well, it's a totem, as I says, it's a bird. It can be a magpie, a crow, and that totem will protect you in ways. It will guide you in ways when you're in. And you can't eat the totem. You're not allowed to eat it. You're not allowed to harm it in any way. And you protect that totem, and that totem will protect and guide you. But it's like your grandfather, your grandmother, or someone who's passed over has come back has that totem, and that totem is connected to you forever. And it's very important, because even though Aboriginal people are not going through initiation, there's still that connection to the land and the totem, and things will happen to them as they get older, and these things will get stronger. Like that connection to the totem will get stronger, and the connection to that land, like the yearning to go home when one feels one's going to pass away. And it always looks towards going home, so it's very important.
Can I ask then, what is your dream for the ideal future for the Aboriginal community, nation? Yeah.
Well, what is my ideal dream? Well, the ideal dream is that our sovereign rights are recognised, and then Aboriginal people be given a chance to say what they want. So we've never ever been given a chance to say what we want, and it's always the government making the decisions for us, and usually they handpick a few government agents or coconuts or lackeys, whatever you want to call them, and they get up and say what the government wants them to say. And they don't represent us, they represent the government. That's why the Tent Embassy is different. It's the only place, or the only place where we can come, organisation, call it whatever you will. It's the only place where we can come to address all of our issues, that we can bring, Aboriginal deaths in custody, stolen generation. So we've fought for all of those issues here. We've helped bring about a lot of these inquiries and that. But they usually turn the inquiries into something so they benefit from. Like, for instance, they've spent billions of dollars into this investigation into Aboriginal deaths in custody. Now, only one family that I know of has actually gotten any form of money for compensation for one of the deaths in custody. The rest, Aboriginal people, have never ever gotten any compensation, but they've used the inquiry to build more jails. There's actually 4 more jails going to be built in New South Wales, and they're all going to be in areas where there's large populations of Aboriginal people. They've built better surveillance systems right throughout all of the jails right throughout Australia. This has all been done with Aboriginal deaths in custody money. They've used Aboriginal people to use this inquiry, but it's to have this inquiry, but Aboriginal people have never ever benefited out of it. They've had all these recommendations that were supposed to be enacted out of this legislation, out of this inquiry, but very few of the recommendations have been enacted. Right throughout Australia, the incarceration rate of Aboriginal people have increased for men, women and children. The deaths in custody have increased for men, women and children, Aboriginal men, women and children. That's in spite of billions of dollars being poured into Aboriginal deaths in custody, this inquiry and that. And still nothing for Aboriginal people. And in fact, they've used this deaths in custody inquiry to further terrorise Aboriginal communities right across Australia. They're now terrorising our children, because they're the ones out there on the streets. They're the ones that these legislations are being used against, like Bob Carr. It's disgusting what's happening up in New South Wales, how this new terrorist act already, Aboriginal kids are being charged under this. It's already happening. And, Aboriginal people being sentenced, refused bail without any evidence. It's still going on. The legal system in this country still plays a major role in locking up Aboriginal people and committing deaths in custody. I mean, that's all a part of it. That's why our people are dying in custody, because they've been traumatised. There's nowhere else left to go, and if the Tent Embassy is moved, then there'll be nowhere. We may as well all just lay down and die. And that's why it's so important that we be able to keep this going, because nowhere else in the world is there a place like the Tent Embassy. There's not any place that I'm aware of where you can actually go and protest in front of any parliament in the world like we are doing here. And I think it's very important that we stay, and that we stay as we determine, not as the government determines, because this is Aboriginal land. It should be like any other embassy where you go on their land. It's like if you go into the English or the British embassy, it's British land. This is Aboriginal land, and if they come on here, it's Aboriginal land, and if anything happens here, we determine what happens here. everything that's been bought here, the gunyas, the new gunya, the gunya of the future, the flags, the fire, the 2 demountables up at the top, we bought them here, the Aboriginal people. We bought the 2 demountables here with the support of the unions. They've helped us bring them here, and everything else we bought here. And if anything goes, we want to make sure that we're the ones that says that it goes, not the National Capital Planning Authority or the government. We're here in protest. We're not here to look pretty for the government. We're here in protest and to show how Aboriginal people are forced to live in our own country. Conditions here are a lot better than in a lot of Aboriginal communities out there. And you don't have to go far. You don't have to go far. Go up to Redfern, in the city where they had the Olympic Games in the year 2000. Have a look at Redfern community, and our Aboriginal people are forced to live in that community. How they're forced to live out at La Perouse. You know, nothing's changed. In fact, the statistics have gotten worse. The deaths have increased. The deaths of Aboriginal people in custody and the deaths of Aboriginal people in general have increased. The death rate. Life expectancy of Aboriginal people. We live 20 to 30 years less than the wider community. You still have one of the highest infant mortality rates here in the world, and one of the highest here in the world. And this is supposed to be a peaceful country, but that's what we're saying. We're still at war. These people are still at war with us, and we're trying to end the war. We want it to win. We want someone to take responsibility for this war here. Someone has to put up their hand and say, yeah, it's happened. They've got to say that, and then someone has to say, well, we want this war to end. But you've got a Prime Minister that can't even say sorry to the Stallion generation, so how is he going to end the war? In fact, he's out there trying to start a war with another country where innocent people will die again. And that's why we've been standing up for 31 years saying, no more wars. There's been enough death, there's been enough pain and suffering, and the world, we believe, is hungry for peace and justice, and the only way we're going to get peace and justice is through love and recognition of our sovereignty. We're trying to show the whole world that you don't have to drop bombs on people, that you don't have to kill people, you don't have to shoot them, you don't have to commit violence against anyone, that you can make your point and you can make it in a way that it's the way that we've been doing it, through our ceremonies, through our fire, and trying to bring people together around the fire to sit and talk about peace and justice and how we're going to end all wars.
What is that?
Hi, darling.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. Hey, how's it going, buzz?
Good. I'll come say good day. I've
There
been
you
here for
go.
a couple of days.
Yeah, I know. Everyone's been down here. Look, where's Darren?
Hey, I've got to babysit the girl. She's been really crook. I don't know what it is. But it's not getting any better. One day you're alright, the next minute bunning down for the count again.
She's pregnant.